Hello, everyone. This is Manisha Quest, and welcome to today's webinar, PeopleSoft Path to Cloud, How to Get Ready. Just a few housekeeping notes to go over before we get started. All attendee lines are in mute and will stay in mute throughout the sessions. If you do have questions, please put them in the drop-down question box, and we will answer them at the end of the session. Right now, I will take it over to Chris, who will get things started. Thank you.
Great, thank you everyone, and thanks for joining us this afternoon or morning, wherever you're calling in from. Today we're going to be talking about the PeopleSoft Path to Cloud and really how you get ready for that journey, no matter where you are on that journey. We'll do a brief introductions, talk a little bit about how Elire views the overall path to cloud and how we've organized our approach in working with our customers on this journey. We're going to have Jeff speak about making the most of your current PeopleSoft investment and some of the things you can do today, no matter when you plan on making that cloud migration. Richard is going to talk to us about the roadmap and how you start conceptualizing that journey for that first implementation to cloud. And then I'm going to wrap us up with a scorecard, a very simple framework to give you an overview of some of the things that we consider to be ready for making that migration to cloud. If we have time, we will do Q&A. We do have a lot to cover, so please put your questions in the chat and we'll try to get to them at the end. And if not, we will make sure to follow up after this web conference. So first, introductions. Today, I'm gonna get us going. My name is Chris Kostix. I am one of the founders of Elire. Back in 2005, we started Elire, and really we started Elire on the premise of PeopleSoft. Myself and Jeff and many of our other partners came from the world of PeopleSoft. I worked at PeopleSoft in the late 90s, and through much of our history at Elire, we really focused on PeopleSoft implementations. We then, over the years, have developed other service offerings. Richard's going to talk to you about some of our other service offerings that are complementary to this cloud journey. I currently oversee our cloud practice areas. We call our delivery areas centers of excellences, and I oversee our cloud HCM, ERP, supply chain, EPM cloud areas. So with that, Jeff, can you do a brief intro?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. My name is Jeff Hilliard. I'm a partner with Elire as well. I lead our PeopleSoft Center of Excellence and also all on-premise applications. Similar to Chris, I started in PeopleSoft in the late 90s as well, and have both a technical and functional background in PeopleSoft, and joined Elire, soon after the formation, and it pretty much formed a strong relationship with all the partners, and it built a real strong methodology over the years in PeopleSoft, and now into as we kind of migrate and journey into the cloud. So looking forward to today's discussion. I'll turn it over to Richard.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Richard Merrill. I'm also a partner at Elire, and I'm the head of service delivery. I wear a couple of different hats. My background's a little bit different. I come from the world of business process improvement. I come from the world of strategy, change management, and so my career has really been around how do we use these tools to really transform the way we do our work and to make it easier for our employees to get their work accomplished. Today I'll be talking a little bit about strategy and roadmaps, and we just look forward to all of you participating today, and I'll throw it back to Chris.
Thank you, Richard. So a little bit about why we'll just briefly hit on Elire and why we consider ourselves really the experts in PeopleSoft to cloud migrations. In our cloud practice areas, we've converted folks from many different systems, Lawson, EBS, and others, but where we really have a sweet spot is understanding the journey from PeopleSoft to cloud. It's where I came from when I made that transition myself, and it's where we have developed a lot of accelerators in the PeopleSoft space as well as in the cloud space. A lot of our accelerators and tools that we help our customers move are built within that People Tools framework, and we've built a lot of accelerators over the years. And that's, again, just to our history as PeopleSoft experts and then now cloud experts. And just real quick, a high-level NASCAR slide of the different industries and client profiles that we have. We don't have a specific focus. We've worked with large, small, private, public sector, a whole range of different organizations out there in both the cloud and PeopleSoft space. Now we'll get into the meat of this. PeopleSoft Path to Cloud Journey Overview. The way that we view this journey for all of you is really in a series of days, and we consider this day 0, day 1, day 2. Day 0 being you're on PeopleSoft now, and we understand that everyone's roadmap to cloud is unique. Some organizations will move to OCI or other infrastructure, and that will be their cloud migration. Many organizations will move their actual applications to a SaaS-based product offering. And our specialty is really focusing on that Oracle Cloud readiness for it. But when you're on PeopleSoft today, we consider some of the main things to really maximizing your current PeopleSoft investment. And we're going to focus most of today's conversation around day 0 and the different activities aligned to day 0. Day 1 is that first introduction into moving to Oracle Cloud, or really any cloud product, but in this case, we focus on Oracle Cloud. We're not going to spend a lot of time today talking about this. We are going to consider some of the main criterion to be ready for moving and making this first transition. But day 1 is all about laying that foundation. There's so much more that cloud can offer, but you have to first start, whether it's a big bang implementation where you're doing a full suite or multi-suite, or it's a coexist strategy where you're bringing in a module like succession planning and hooking it into your PeopleSoft investment. Day 2 is after you've laid that foundation, all of the enhancements and optimizations around that cloud investment. A lot of these, this is a lot of different service offerings that we offer, but it's really aligned to that journey of cloud migration. And again, we're going to be focusing on this far left bucket area where we talk about whether you're on not yet on 9.2, whether you're on 9.2 and you're optimized and what that means. And then the cloud road mapping piece that Richard's going to talk to you about. And I'm going to talk about, again, the readiness that will get you into this next, whether it's big bang or coexistence. So that was a high-level summary. Now I'm going to hand it over to Jeff to talk about how you today can make the most of your PeopleSoft investment and what you can be doing to get ready for that migration to cloud.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And a common theme when we say making the most of PeopleSoft is really we highly encourage customers to continue to maximize your investment in PeopleSoft, even as you make that journey to cloud. As Chris mentioned, every customer's journey is going to be different. There's so many variables that impact, so many things as it relates to the journey, but particularly, the duration of the journey itself. Some customers may be ready in 1 to 2 years, other customers 5+ years. What we have also recognized is the customers that continue to invest in their PeopleSoft, looking at their customizations, minimizing customizations where possible, standardizing their business processes, doing those type of things throughout their journey have been more successful on their cloud implementation. So that's the key theme of kind of what day 0 is all about. What we understand is that customers have, a significant investment in PeopleSoft. Customers have been on PeopleSoft for very many years. They've built complex third-party integrations, so it invested a lot into, supporting their other business needs. Many of those integrations probably haven't been touched in many years, and they're things that we need to start considering as we look at the journey to the cloud. Within PeopleSoft, one of the beauties and kind of also one of the challenges is the ability to customize. So many customers have, a large number of customizations that, some are simple and many are complex. They could be bolt-ons. And customers have made investments in their PeopleSoft, the servers and third-party systems, APIs, things like Vertex, those type of things. So moving to cloud is a complex decision. Everything that I just mentioned above as well as the change management impacts to, when you actually pull the trigger and go to the cloud, the users, the look and feel. There's going to be some changes to business process, although we hope to tackle those up front before you make that journey. Deciding when to make the move, and whether it's a big bang or a phased approach or a coexistence, and that includes both on the financial side and the HCM side as well. So many things to decide there, and then each customer is going to have to make that decision for what SaaS solution do they go with, right? So that's where Richard will talk about some of the capabilities and some of the service offerings that Elire offers in that regard. And then the continuous development to support PeopleSoft. We just got word that another 10 years is going to be supported. So we're going through 2034. So there continues to be new features being released and enhancements to the product. So again, continuing to maximize that investment. So some of the potential turbulence when moving to the cloud. There you go. Some of the things that cause some turbulence, we mentioned customizations, and those customizations can cause some business process alignment because customers may have created customizations to kind of work around the delivered process or business process. Customizations could keep customers from being current on PUM because of the effort associated with staying current with your tools and your PUM updates. But the big thing that I mentioned already is the resistance to change. So that's some of the turbulence that are fairly common across PeopleSoft customers looking to go to the cloud. Next slide, Chris. Okay, so how to prepare for the journey, and this is, Chris had given you a full picture. This is just the day zero view of our journey, and we call this our 4 quadrants of day zero. So as we kind of work through the details of this, what we're asking customers to do is think about where you are in PeopleSoft as it relates to this journey and these quadrants. And then once you determine where you are at or your organization is at, consider doing some of the things that we will dive into here to really help prepare for that journey. And as I mentioned, that doing these type of things do better prepare you for success in the cloud. Next slide, Chris. Okay, so journey step 1 is if for customers that are not yet on 9.2, one of the things we recommend is doing a readiness assessment. So this assessment would evaluate your current state, whether it's 9.0, 9.1, whatever pre-9.2 environment you're in, looking at your business processes, your customizations, and kind of making decisions of what customizations can go, what new features can be implemented as part of 9.2, and what's the change impact to that. A second, I won't spend much time because Richard's going to dive into this. Once you complete your readiness assessment, you may decide that you want to do an evaluation of PeopleSoft 9.2 versus the cloud before you jump into an upgrade. So that's available service offering that we have, and that's for customers that really just aren't sure yet if they need to go to 9.2. Many customers decide to go ahead and make that leap to 9.2, and certainly that readiness assessment will help set that scope and allow you to move to the version 9.2 with confidence. And as I mentioned previously, obviously prioritizing customization removal is key here. And it doesn't mean you have to remove all customizations, but understanding what the customizations are. And if it's a customization you're not ready to remove, how do we minimize the impact of that customization? And we prefer that, we use a tool that we've developed internally that groups the customizations at the component level, so at the business process level. So having whatever tool you use or have been using to track your customizations is important to reevaluate those and understand what they are. So that's all pre-9.2 things. So if you go to the next slide, Chris. This is just an overview of our tool that I mentioned, and again, it's grouping things by at the business process level or the component level, and it really provides a clear picture of where all the customizations sit and reside as you kind of make that journey and deciding what to do with your customizations as you think about going to the cloud. Next slide, Chris. Yeah, and then this just kind of gives you some of the benefits. Again, it's giving you a clearer view, whereas a delivered compare report doesn't really provide that. Okay, so when we talk about a readiness assessment, and this is our strategy for all types of assessments, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a readiness, it could be an optimization, it could be a PUM update. This is the same process and methodology we follow for doing these type of assessments. Step one is the execution of the customization tool that we just covered. That gives you a clear view of the what has been customized and where it sits in the application. So Chris, if you can hit enter here, sorry. This will go through the various current state review and disconnect analysis. So as we're going through the assessment, understanding what is not working in your current state is key, right? Because if you're going to do an effort, whether it's go to a new PUM image, whether it's go to 9.2, optimize, take on some new features, it's good to understand what's not working current state so you can address those as part of that effort. The analysis workshops is really all about looking on how you can improve your PeopleSoft, maximize your PeopleSoft. It's all about understanding the customizations and making recommendations what to do with those customizations. And again, this is where we start having the kind of the view of, if we know what cloud solution we're going for, having an understanding where these customizations may play as you make that journey to the cloud. And then of course, at the very end, it's really finalizing your project scope for the scope of work that you want to complete within the PeopleSoft application, keeping in mind that what you're doing is hopefully going to benefit your journey along the way. Next slide. And then, Elire, we've built a accelerator tool essentially to track that scope. The scope tracker tool is really meant to help drive, help kind of guide your way through the optimization project. It's used to support various project efforts all the way for almost any project that you take on during the day zero quadrant. Like I mentioned, readiness assessments, upgrades, tools updates, optimizations. The tool, as I mentioned, is also used to facilitate the tracking of impacts related to the migration to the Oracle Cloud applications as well. So as you're making decisions on customizations, we can track what the impact to that is on the actual future state cloud. Next slide. All right, so this is for the customers already on 9.2. We have many customers that went to 9.2 but haven't really optimized the application. So really coming up with a strong CDM strategy so that you're taking on PUMs at least at a minimum once a year. And really, as you are keeping current with your PUM updates, continuing to review those customizations that are impacted by the PUM and continuing to address how those will best play in the future, whether removing them or re-engineering them so they have a smaller impact on your updates. Next step. And then for those customers that are keeping current with their PUMs, at least once a year, staying current, it's worth your investment to really begin to think of extending your applications and utilities. Things like Kibana, Picasso chatbots, process automation, usage monitoring just came out or was enhanced in PeopleTools 8.6.0, discussion services. So there's so many things. Testing automation, you own the PeopleSoft test framework. Why not utilize that and really shrinking your PUM update testing? These are the type of things that, if you are optimized, PeopleSoft continues to invest in these things, particularly on the Kibana and Picasso. Things that you just want to take advantage of as you're still progressing through your journey. Next slide. Regardless of your PeopleSoft maturity and stage on the path to cloud, we recommend the following: the PeopleSoft optimization. So just trying to get that maximize that value. I mentioned prioritizing customization removal. And then this will lead into Richard's piece, which is all about evaluating PeopleSoft 9.2 versus the cloud. So Richard, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. And, as Jeff just got done talking to you, while you're on PeopleSoft, there's a lot of things you can be doing to make that ultimate journey a little bit easier, whether it's removing customizations, getting better standardization, etc. But at some point along the way, you make the decision that cloud is now going to be right for you. And so what I want to talk to you about is how do you create that path to cloud? And what are some key components for a path to cloud? And the first component is examining strategic drivers. And think of the strategic driver as the why. Why do you want to begin this journey? And it could be why that is very specific to you and to your organization. Now, some examples of strategic drivers below might be that you're trying to reduce infrastructure and technology costs, or maybe you want to move to a more agile workplace where you get new features and functions on a more regular basis. Perhaps your why is that you have an obsolete legacy application, or maybe your why is that you want to get a more centralized system. Potentially some of your applications are moving out of support. Some other whys might be that you want a better, more unified database with better visibility into your data, or you may improve your user experience. But there may also be business reasons, right? You want to improve business functionality, you want to improve operational efficiency, or perhaps it's going to be done in conjunction with an organizational restructure. So strategic drivers are really, why do you want to begin this path? And on the next slide, we'll talk about establishing cloud transformation guiding principles. And think of guiding principles as those things that help you stay on your journey, right? Strategic drivers were the why am I going to do this? Guiding principles are how will I stay on my path? And you really want to create these with your stakeholders and get alignment on them and buy-in on them. And again, as with the strategic drivers, they're going to be unique to your organization. But some things to consider as you're pondering your own guiding principles as part of your own roadmap would be determining your cloud software strategy. You know, a guiding principle could be Oracle first. Everything that we can have on Oracle will be on Oracle. Maybe your organization take a different software strategy and say, you know, it's okay to have multiple point solutions. Another consideration to think about when considering guiding principles is your implementation approach. Are you going to slowly migrate from on-prem to cloud and have a coexistence strategy where some things are on cloud and some things are on-prem, and over time you'll do a phased approach? Or will you go big bang all at once? As part of your implementation approach, what's your guiding principles around decommissioning legacy systems? And which of those systems do you maybe have to hold on to? You know, you may not need it for your core accounting or HR functions, but maybe there's a down the road reporting functionality that still requires that legacy system. Other guiding principles might be around pain points. Are you trying to resolve isolated pain points with small continuous changes, or is your guiding principle to be total process transformation and to use this project as an opportunity to do that? There may be guiding principles around other things at play, right? There are other competing initiatives, there's other accounting considerations. And finally, guiding principles that you might consider are around architecture and infrastructure. So on the next slide, I want to talk about decision criteria, because you know, the strategic drivers are answering the why. Why am I beginning this path? The guiding principles are helping keep you on the path. Well, as you're going down that path, you have choices to make. And how do you want to make those choices? Making those choices will be helpful if you develop a set of decision criteria. And again, as with the strategic drivers, as with the guiding principles, these really should be unique for you and your organization. But we want to give you some examples of things you might consider. So as you're trying to make choices along the way, as you're trying to make choices on your roadmap, you might consider how those choices fit up against your requirements. And we'll talk more about that on the next slide. But before we go there, other decision criteria could be, how does it impact process improvement, or what does it do for my cost or my security? There may be decision criteria around interfaces or middleware or workflow or data conversion. But whatever the criteria that are important to you, you really want to understand them and use them to make those choices that are in the roadmap and along the journey along the way. But let's talk a little bit more about a fit gap or requirements on the next slide, because most people do include that as a decision criteria. And when we talk about defining requirements, we really recommend that you consider establishing a healthy balance, right? So you're on PeopleSoft, you're going to the cloud, you know you need cloud to meet your requirements, but when you define your requirements, what should you consider? And you don't want them too high level. You don't want it to be, I need to do a journal entry, I need to issue payroll. It's too high. But you also don't need to go into deep dive design, right? Remember, this is a roadmap. You're just trying to figure out how to get there. This is not about implementation. Implementation is where you need to get to the detailed design level. So make sure you get to the right level of detail to help you pick your system and solution that's right for you. And also think beyond functionality requirements, which are incredibly important, but you also want to prioritize other requirements that really are going to factor into how you configure cloud, like the number of legal entities or your volume of data or your data cleanup considerations. You know, when migrating to cloud, address data is important, and you want to make sure you really understand those data cleanup considerations if necessary. There may also be integration points or architecture needs, right, that you really want to make sure are defined within your requirements. And be on the lookout for anything that's unique to you and your organization, things that may not fit within the usual cloud structure. Because if you don't know if they're going to fit, you may want to do a proof of concept or a POC. Or if they don't fit, maybe a POC proved out it didn't, you may have to look at some solution beyond cloud. And we really want you to understand those requirements along the way, because when you get to your final journey, if major sets of requirements were not met along the way, it's going to lead to lower user adoption, right? And then think about cloud capabilities to address customizations. You know, it's not all out of the box, right? There's ability to make it work for you through things like autocomplete and Redwood Visual Builder. And if you are having to do different point solutions, really understand the requirements there as well. So definitely make sure you're defining your requirements if you're using that as one of your decision criteria, which we recommend. On the next slide, you know, so we've talked about 3 different components of your roadmap. We've talked about decision criteria, we've talked about guiding principles, we've talked about strategic drivers. So as you're getting ready for a cloud roadmap project, here are some additional considerations, 3 different things to consider. One would be stakeholder alignment, making sure who are your key stakeholders, who are going to really help you drive this project, and are they supporting it? Are they resisting it? If they're resisting it, what's the plan? And you really want to get alignment. Alignment's going to be helpful to make it more successful. And you want to keep alignment once you achieve it. And you'll keep it by having a regular communication cadence. So what is that cadence going to look like? Another area of activity around project readiness involves project mobilization. You want to have a steering committee for your roadmap. And the steering committee should be made up of some of those key stakeholders. You also want to think about who are going to be your thread leads, who are your business leads, your functional leads, your technical leads that you're going to need to make your roadmap project successful. And what are key milestones that could impact the overall timeline, whether it's open enrollment, year-end close, etc. And once you know your leads and all your milestones, you know, really confirm that project timeline. Make sure you have everyone's bandwidth. And then finally, user adoption. You know, and it might sound strange to talk about user adoption when you're talking about a roadmap, right? But user adoption really begins now. It's not the last 30 days of the implementation. As you're building your roadmap to go from PeopleSoft to cloud, you want to bring people along the way. The more you have a change management plan, the stronger your user adoption will be once you go live. And a part of that also includes defining who's going to support the application, and determining if you're going to have to upskill your current staff. Do you have to upskill your IT folks to support it? Do you have to upskill your business folks? And really figuring out what training and resources are going to be required. Doing all of that as part of the roadmap really helps you better prepare your overall project readiness. And so that's just some really key considerations to think about and key components to think about as you're pondering a roadmap, as you're pondering going from PeopleSoft to cloud. And now I'm going to throw it back to Chris. We're going to talk to you a little bit about cloud, more about cloud and cloud readiness.
Thank you, Richard. And what I'm going to build upon is many of the concepts that Richard talked about. You know, you may have engaged with a consulting partner to help you with a RFP response, or you may be earlier in your journey and you just want to understand what does that roadmap look like. What we like to do is a very simple, quick and dirty assessment of readiness. And I want to show you an example of what this scorecard might look like and the different categories we have in our assessment. I'm going to go through these different categories and talk through some of the key concepts, not so much so that you need to know if you have an answer today, but you know, a lot of these things you're going to be familiar with as I dig into these subject areas. And what I like to do is more of a quick and dirty, have you considered this? And if yes, then you know, move forward and do a quick scoring of your overall cloud readiness across these different dimensions. So I'm going to get into the details here, and really a lot of this is what Richard talked about already. You may have done this roadmap, you may have your guiding principles already, but when I think about motivation, do you have clearly defined business objects? Prioritization of drivers. He mentioned some of those drivers. Have you not only identified those, but prioritized them? And do you have your stakeholder buy-in and really the alignment of those guiding principles? When I think about the key aspect of a successful cloud migration, it's all about expectations. Expectations with your consulting partner, expectations with your stakeholders, expectations with your customer base, with your internal employees, with your project team, and making sure you know as much and you're as ready as you can be to go into this large endeavor. And so this is really one of the first components is motivation, but all of these areas that we can score, do you have these things, are really about expectation alignment. When I think about going to cloud for the first time, it's, you know, you see the demo, you see all the promise of what cloud can offer. And if you see that demo and then you don't see cloud for another, you know, you let the implementation team run off and do their thing, and then you come back and you don't see all the bells and whistles that you saw in that demo, that's just simply a misalignment of expectations. When we get into the implementation, you know, there are going to be things that we don't do in day one, but we will do in day 1 and 2. Or I'm sorry, day 2. The next category is really about governance. And again, this is, Richard talked a bit about this. Do you have a governance framework in place? You know, almost every company that has PeopleSoft, or every organization that has PeopleSoft, has some kind of governance framework. What is a governance framework that will be part of this cloud journey? Is it a single, you know, step in the cloud migration, or is it a larger path or larger roadmap that is going to encompass many years of ultimately getting to cloud? Stakeholder engagement, like Richard talked about, communication and meetings, and the cadence and frequency of those meetings. How are you going to keep your stakeholders engaged? Have you thought about that? Do you have a change control process? I'm sure you do. Have you thought about how that change control process will work within the cloud migration? And then what metrics and reporting will you be using throughout the engagement? You know, some of these things you can rely on your consulting partner to provide, but oftentimes you're going to have the tools and techniques that work well for your organization that can be blended with the consulting organization's methodologies and approaches. Resource strategy readiness. This is another simple but often overlooked step. have your consultants been, or have your employees been trained, especially your project team members, on how to use Oracle Cloud or whatever cloud tool you're going to be moving towards? The project team members, the more they have experience, and I've been part of project teams where the client has gotten their employees certified before the actual implementation. It allows you to make better decisions, ask better questions of your consulting partner, and understand how your requirements will fit into the current cloud. Have you identified all the roles for this big endeavor of moving to the cloud? You know, project manager, change management lead, testing lead, subject matter experts. Have they all been identified? And then, do you have a resource plan? Have you thought about how you're going to allocate those resources? Are you going to backfill resources? I always like to say best projects or the best ideal situation would be that you allocate the implementation project with full-time resources, backfill your existing staff, but that's not always the case, and it will also depend on how you plan to engage your consulting organization. But have you thought about how you are going to allocate your resources is really what this question is about. And then the next one is, after you've gone through the roles and the training and what you need to do you have any gaps, and how are you going to address those gaps on your employee base? Next one, Jeff hit on this in his customization inventory. There's lots of tools out there. I'm a little partial to ours, but especially in the PeopleSoft world, but being able to understand all of your customizations and how it aligns to a potential future state, and whether that future state is can be refactored, or the customization can be refactored or can be re-engineered to fit within the new product, or if it's going to have some PaaS tool or another solution for it. Do you have a customization reduction strategy? If you're on PeopleSoft today, what we strongly encourage, like Jeff talked about, is thinking about how you can strategically start reducing your customizations. The ones that maybe you implemented in 7.5 and those customizations continue to live on in your 9.2 environment, what can you get rid of? There's probably functionality out there that will help with cloud adoption. And then do you have documentation, not just the inventory of all your customizations, but what is the real purpose of this customization? Why is it there? Who does it impact? What modules does it align to, and things like that. The next is infrastructure readiness. Again, having an inventory of all of your third-party and internal integrations and what technologies are being used for that. It's interesting, on the next one, do you have an idea about your future state cloud architecture? The tools within cloud are pretty sophisticated, but they are limited with, if you just look at the SaaS application, you have to start looking at other tools to supplement your existing or your cloud implementation. It's not like PeopleSoft where Integration Broker can connect in and you can program it to connect to a number of different sources. There's different ways that cloud connects. There's some great ways that cloud connects, but it's vastly different, and you have to think of, have you thought about that future state architecture and what tools and technologies support that architecture? And then ultimately, one of the keys during an implementation is, you know, how many of these third-party integrations do you have? How many internal integrations do you have? Who are the owners of those integrations, whether, especially internal owners, but then external owners? How long does it take for us to engage with that third party? How do we engage? Do we have to sign a service agreement or update our service agreements to engage in testing? What does that all look like? Because that can really impact your overall project schedule. Next is data conversion readiness, and this is a huge one. It's one of the, I always call it one of the longest poles in the tent. Conversion is such a key part to going into cloud, and your data mapping and what elements you're going to be moving over to cloud is a key consideration. Have you thought about that? Your data quality. Every customer I talk to, or just about every customer I talk to, talks about how great their data is. And then when we get in, we understand, start looking at the data and we see that they have separate tables to store delivered objects. So what is that quality? How do we have to, how much time is going to be needed to get data over to the cloud system? That's going to be a big effort. What conversion tools are going to use? We've built some tools out of PeopleSoft that can help facilitate drastically reducing conversion time if you're coming from PeopleSoft. But what are those tools that you're going to use? And then ultimately, for the data that doesn't move over to cloud, in modules that you're retiring, how are we going to, where are we going to, what are we going to do to, with that data? So have you thought about that? Next is reporting readiness. Reporting is such a key aspect of cloud. You know, I remember back in the early days of my PeopleSoft tenure, and it was all about getting data into cloud so that we could understand operational type reporting. And then of course, reporting has grown more sophisticated and the cloud tools are really incredible. So you don't want to simply, it's good to have an inventory, but you really want to understand what reports do we absolutely need in cloud? Are they going to be used to send to a customer? Is there a cloud equivalent? And then what is going to be our criteria or the rationalization strategy for moving those reports into cloud? When we talk about needing a report in cloud, what is your rationalization for custom development versus using delivered out of the box? And how do you plan on developing reports and customizations to those reports, delivered reports? Are you going to engage a third party to do it, or are you going to try to take that on yourself? I personally think it's great to try to consider building a reporting team, because once you're live, reporting is one of the biggest areas of optimization in cloud. Change management and user adoption is one of the keys to successful cloud implementation. So do you have a change management strategy? Have you done a change impact assessment? Have you identified resources from your team, or are you going to more heavily engage a consulting partner for change management activities? And what is your own internal organization's culture around change? Are you agile? Do you adopt change quickly? Or is change going to be a big piece that you really have to work to add extra time into the project to allow adoption? Deployment strategy, we talked about this a bit. This is a big piece. Are you going to be doing, have you selected how you're going to deploy? Is it going to be a transformational approach, or are you going to simply lift and shift your PeopleSoft to cloud? This, I always consider a cloud migration as your last migration opportunity. We want to do it right the first time and really transform your business processes. But that looks very different than simply lifting and shifting your existing business process requirements to a cloud. What is your approach on transformational versus lift and shift, and how does it impact the project timeline and the milestones there for it? And then I mentioned this or alluded to this a bit ago. How do you plan to engage with your partner, your consulting partner? Are you going to a coaching model where they simply advise you along the way and your team does most of the work? Is it going to be a turnkey where the consulting partner does all the work? Or what I like best is when it's a true partnership where you have a lot of effort and dedicated resources and our team is actively engaged. We've worked in all of those models and all of them can be successful, but it does again impact how the engagement will look. And then business process mapping. Do you have business process maps of your current state? How do the modules, not just the maps themselves, but the modules how do your current PeopleSoft modules or other existing modules align to that business process map? And when we think about moving to the cloud, this can help with your deployment strategy. If you're moving a full business process to the cloud, what are the modules that are needed? That helps with engagement with the Oracle, your Oracle counterparts, and how they start thinking about what bill of materials is needed for your cloud engagement. And then, of course, gap analysis. Richard talked about that in the road mapping. How do you have that How are you going to address the gaps? And then really, again, getting back to the alignment with the business objectives. And finally, our last one is security strategy. Do you have a security strategy? Do you have the controls and processes for moving an application into the cloud? Do you have testing processes in place? How are you going to validate that it's meeting all your organizational security controls? And then do you have any specific organizational, specific security requirements based on your industry? A great example is FedRAMP. If you're a federal agency, we work a lot in the federal space now. Oracle is FedRAMP authorized, and that's a key for moving these applications to the cloud. And there's a lot of different industry pieces out there. So have you considered those engagements or those pieces? I went through a lot of criteria of what a migration could look like, and help to hopefully help spur some ideas on readiness that you may consider or your organization may consider. But I wanted to list 3 main takeaways. One, really about what Jeff talked about. Your current PeopleSoft investment is something to continue to invest in until you're ready to move to cloud. And sometimes if you consider coexistence, you can continue maximizing and investing in PeopleSoft. PeopleSoft just announced their rolling 10-year up to 2034. So PeopleSoft isn't going away anytime soon, but there are some great reasons why you may want to move to cloud now, and many organizations have. The next one, as Richard talked about, as you move along this journey, what are your guiding principles to keep you on that path? And what are those decision criteria and choices that you're going to be making along the way? And then my pieces were all around what you can be doing. Are you ready now? And it will really save pain, rework, and miscommunication later as you go down this journey. Once you move to cloud, that's just the first step. It's a really long path, and Oracle continues to invest in the cloud technologies along the way. So hopefully you got some good ideas to think about on your own cloud journeys. I wanted to throw out that we will be at Blueprint 4D. We're really excited about that. Richard, Jeff, and myself will all be out there along with a number of our colleagues. We have a bunch of PeopleSoft sessions, a bunch of cloud sessions. Richard, Jeff, and I are doing another presentation at 4D, so we hope to see you there and look forward to any meeting with you and answering any questions along the way. With that said, I think we are open for questions.
All right, thank you all. Please feel free to leave some questions in the chat and we'll get those answered. We do have some right now. The first is, why invest in PeopleSoft if we're thinking of going to cloud in a few years?
That is a great question. There's probably a number of things that we can talk about there, but PeopleSoft is continuing. If you're going to move to cloud in 3 years, you have 3 years of your organization that you can continue to use as the backbone of how you pay invoices, hire, train people in your organization. There are strategic things you can be doing now. You can also invest in PeopleSoft by decustomizing, which will help you along your cloud journey to make your cloud journey, once you do move in a few years, a lot easier. So there's a lot you can do today to get more value out of your investment. If it's 3 years, that's a long time. I mean, in I think 6 weeks, we've heard how much AI has revolutionized our personal and work lives. So 3 years is a really long time if you're not going to be investing in your current PeopleSoft framework. One of the other big things that you can do is think about building out your strategy. So it's not necessarily investing in PeopleSoft, but building out how you're going to make that migration to cloud. But Jeff and Richard, any other feedback on that question?
Yeah, just maybe one.
Go on, Jeff.
Yeah, one thing to add, Chris, you mentioned decustomization. not only is it helping you kind of get back to more of a delivered or standardized process, that alone helps your organization prepare to, when you do go to cloud, getting a standardized approach to how you do business, right? It's going to help with that. If you're not going to the cloud, as you mentioned, 2 to 3 years, hopefully you're going to be applying PUM updates, staying current. That decustomizations is going to be cost savings right there alone. And then being able to, as you mentioned, take on new features that Oracle continues to provide in the PUM updates. That's providing business value there. So there's really a lot of return on that investment, and not only within the PeopleSoft application, which I think is kind of the perception is that everything's just going to be lost. It really does help, promote that journey to the cloud, and will pay dividends when you make that move.
And I'll throw in one other piece. A very common strategy to move to cloud is some sort of coexistence. A lot of times a customer will have the expectation that they're going to move to cloud and shut down PeopleSoft at the end of this first implementation. And that is rarely the case. There is often something that must be left behind in PeopleSoft. Not always, but it's a longer journey. So you're going to be keeping that PeopleSoft investment, especially if you don't start for 3 years, around for a while. Like, let's imagine you have pension. You could try to bite off pension during the implementation of cloud, because cloud doesn't have a pension module. But how does that look now? How does that look over those years? You may keep PeopleSoft on, and you may be doing coexist back into PeopleSoft while you move slowly into the cloud. If you're doing a big bang, you may be able to shut down PeopleSoft after that first deployment, but that's going to be a large project. So you're not only starting, let's say, in 3 years, but you're really looking 4 or 5 years before you're fully able to shut down PeopleSoft. So there's a lot of your business still running on PeopleSoft. And like Jeff said, there's a lot of actual ROI that we can show, or others can show to really maximize that investment.
Perfect. We got a few more. You might have hit on this already. Are there any major roadblocks moving from PeopleSoft to cloud we should be aware of?
Oh, it's fraught with roadblocks. The path is not easy. I will say that. There are ways to make it easier, and really it's about a lot of the things we talked about today. It's understanding all of those. It's understanding your roadmap, your drivers, your motivations, but also how ready are you? Is your staff ready to actually adopt? We have a customer that we helped with a migration before we were there. It's National Electric. They trained all of their employees on using Oracle Cloud with Oracle University, and they gamified it by getting those employees to take that training, and whoever took the training, they got full licenses for. The license to train is pretty expensive, but they took the team that took that training ended up being the team that really saw the implementation through to the end, and then ultimately supported it. So it allowed buy-in for their team. So really getting that right group of your employees, or if you're outsourcing this entire thing, finding the right partner that can take on the support of the cloud product when you're actually live. And again, that gets back to the drivers. What are your drivers? But those are some of the big ones. There are a lot of technological changes moving to cloud. There's a lot of great things, but it's different. We've mapped out some of the key concepts between PeopleSoft and cloud, and we have tools to help that migration, but it's not easy. And we've been through it many times. The first time I went through it, I thought it would be a lot simpler than it was, but it's, there are a lot of new technologies and concepts. So yes, there are a lot of roadblocks. So finding the right partner to help you through that transition is really important.
Perfect. I think we have time for one more. In terms of leveraging PS functionality, do you recommend adopting PS modules to allow the deprecation of bolt-ons, like implementing absence management to replace a legacy bolt-on PTO tracker?
And and if I can understand that question more, absence management in the cloud Is that what they're talking about? Or are they talking about in PeopleSoft?
She said no, on-prem
Okay, Jeff, I'll let you field that one.
in PeopleSoft.
Yeah, and the answer would be yes, and the reason is, again, it goes back to standardizing, getting to a standard business process. So if you have a custom bolt-on, that bolt-on, I assume, is kind of tailored built to whatever needs that were at the business needs at that time, and it could be spread across different areas of your business. How the functions work, and how the customizations play with each other. Going to a delivered model, will provide all the benefits of that delivered application, right? And particularly absence management, it has a lot of function, bells and whistles, but it will then also allow your organization to take that step to standardization of that business process. And it's probably most likely going to provide a better look and feel to what the cloud's going to be like. So again, it's that whole journey piece, and getting your users more adaptable to a more standardized best of breed process.
Yeah, that's a great example of making that decision. We'll have short-term benefits while you're still on PeopleSoft, and longer-term benefits to make, once you go to cloud, it's going to make that implementation project a lot easier. So there's definitely a return on that investment.
Right. Perfect. Well, I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. Chris, Jeff, Richard, such a great presentation. On behalf of Quest, this will be posted to the Quest content library for Quest members to view at your leisure. As Chris said earlier, please join us at Blueprint 40. We're about a month out for more information like this today. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and you all have a great one.
Thank you. Take care.